my channel. My name is Isabel, and today in Isabel's Digest, we are doing a book digestion with a movie comparison. So if you don't live in Europe, last Friday, Netflix uploaded this movie called The Last Letter from Your Lover, which is based on a novel by Jojo Moyes from 2008, I think. And this new adaptation is good if you want to watch a love movie. But if you read the book, I have some comments of how they changed the narrative and the characters and how these changes affected the story as a whole. I want to state as a little disclaimer that this critique is not to the author of the novel, to the actors that portray the characters as best as they could. It is just my opinion of the things I like in the book that weren't portrayed in the adaptation. And yes, this review is going to contain some spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing. But yes, if you already watched the movie and you just want to know how the book is different, then stay. If you read the book and you want to know how the movie is different, then stay. If you don't care at all, but you like me or something, or you're bored, stay. So let's begin with the plot, right? This is a novel that has a split narrative, and it starts in 1965 with a woman waking up from a car accident in the hospital, and now she doesn't remember who she is, why was she there, etc., etc., etc. We learned that this is a very wealthy woman named Jennifer, and she and her husband Lawrence are in a very good social position. They're wealthy, they have friends, they have all these parties, but they are not happy together. They're just content with their position, with their life, but they don't click that much. However, thinking of the times in 1965, this is totally normal and what they expected marriage was going to be like anyways. However, Jennifer has this feeling that something is wrong. She finds this one letter stuck in a book addressed to her from this mysterious lover, and she realizes that she has been in love before and that she had a secret affair that she doesn't remember, but she knows that this man is her true love. On the other end, in current times of the novel, so think 2008, but then in the movie 2020, we have Ellie, who is a reporter, a very good journalist, a very promising one who is in thin ice at her job. She needs to come up with a good story to save her job because she's been slacking since she's been involved with a married man. There, for randomness of life, she encounters this letter left in the archive addressed to Jennifer, and she immediately gets obsessed with discovering what happened to these lovers, what happened to this forbidden love, and to see if she can make it a piece for the newspaper. With Ellie and Jennifer, we discover what happened to this tragic love affair. We discover what happens in the future, like where are they now? Are they together? Are they not? And the letters are very beautiful piece of writing that conveys a lot of love and passion and commitment to each other. Overall, I don't think it's the best novel by Jojo Moyes or anything like that, but I think it is good at portraying romance and pining and one of those slow burns that go over for a lot of years. If that's something that you like, I would totally recommend it to you. And the plot itself stays the same with a few modifications with the movie. Now I want to talk about the structure because it's a very important part of how the movie is so different to the novel. In the movie, we meet both storylines almost at the same time. We are introduced to Jennifer first, but then we know Ellie way sooner. And I think that this is something crucial to the understanding of the story and for you to like the characters more. Ellie, the journalist, appears sooner, therefore you care for her story arc at the same time that you start caring for Jennifer's. And in the novel, we are all the time with Jennifer, that in the part 2, when we jump to Ellie and the current times, you're like, I don't care about this person. I want to know what happened to the characters I've been investing all my reading time with. This is something really normal, and I don't know why the author took the decision to not do parallel like each chapter or something, because it's something very easy to achieve in writing. So that's an interesting decision. But yes, I think that this change in the structure is so crucial for you to enjoy all the characters. Which bring me to the characters. And their changes are not that good, like the change in the structure. Starting with our protagonist, Jennifer, I think that her character is the one that stay the purest. It's almost an exact replica from the novel. However, in the novel, we do have a lot of her inner turmoil, of her not knowing what to do. We know more about her upbringing and the expectations she has on her own and her friend group and how their social group acts. I don't want to say that the actress is not beautiful. She's super beautiful, but we always had this word of her being stunning and gorgeous and breathtaking, and I imagine her more like that, more stunning. But I think the actress that they picked ultimately did a great performance of Jennifer and her doubt, because you can really see in her face that she was having problems with thinking that she was going to cheat on her husband and potentially leave her family and her status in which she thought it was moral for love. And we see a lot of that in her character. I think it was the one that stayed the most truthful to the novel, even though I think that in the novel she was more curious. We know by the dinner parties that they have that she is very curious, very intelligent. She really wants to state an opinion about current affairs, and her husband is kind of like, don't talk about these things, you're a woman, yada yada yada, sexism, 1960s. And especially, I think that we need to remember the story is developing in 1965, but Jennifer and Lawrence really met at the end of the 1950s, and they were raised in the 1950s. So they really portray this nuclear family, clear gender roles, sexist gender roles, if you might add. And that's crucial because as the story goes forward, and we get closer to the 1970s, the times have changed in the novel, and they mention that. And Jennifer feels empowered by the social changes, but she also feels like she belongs to a very old school class, and that's something that encourages her to leave her husband towards the end. In the fashion department, I think they did a really great job with Jennifer clothing, and I love that in the moments that they are in the summer affair, she has really bright clothing. Some of them have very tight silhouettes and some of them are very flowy. You kind of get the feeling that she feels liberated, that she feels in love for the first time through the clothing, if that makes sense. Because it's kind of this montage, and it's the magic of the montage because they don't have that much dialogue between them while they are falling in love. So you really just get happy images of them together, and the clothing does a lot of the work, and the movements does a lot of the work. And I wasn't very sure that the main couple had a lot of chemistry. I don't feel like anyone had a lot of chemistry in this movie like they did in the book. The portrayal of the affair when it started was really good. Next, we have Anthony. He is a journalist, and he is, more importantly, a war correspondent. Something that I find infuriating is that his career as a journalist is almost entirely erased. You just hear that he is a journalist and this is why he is interviewing Jennifer's husband, but that's it. He doesn't have problems writing. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know his passion when he talks about politics, when he talks about external affairs. And that's something crucial to his character because it helps you compare him to Lawrence, because Lawrence is traditional, Lawrence is uptight, Lawrence is a capitalist, and Anthony really is his opposite, and he's passionate about his work, and he shows Jennifer that it's important to care, that it's important to read the newspapers. And his job also is a connection to Ellie in the future because she finds the letters in the archive because he used to work at the same newspaper. But this movie kind of like erases that crucial part of his identity, and then he just turns into any other man. He could have been any other profession, he could have had any other beliefs, and you wouldn't have noticed because it's not important to the movie, which I think is a shame. Furthermore, I think that historical background in the novel and what was happening in Africa at the time was very interesting for me because I didn't know. And while you are going into the novel expecting romance, this kind of like educates you a little bit. And I feel like it's crucial because also of those changing social roles at the beginning of the 60s and the end of the 60s. It was a total change because of everything that was happening. Economics, politics, pop culture, everything is coming together. And we can see how this couple is affected by all of it indirectly without them commenting on it, very organically. And all of that kind of made sense for the novel to happen in this particular time because of what the characters are going through, because of what they care about. That justifies for this random year, not just because you want nostalgia of the 60s or because you think that, oh, before these things didn't happen or whatever. But without it, the movie just kind of uses the time as an excuse and an aesthetic instead of a way to make a political commentary about society. Then it's Larry or Lawrence, who is Jennifer's husband. He is, as I already said, a capitalist. He's very wealthy, but that's it. You don't know anything else about him in the movie, which is troubling because his job and the way he is, his unethical shortcomings in his job is what brings a lot of plot twists to the story towards the end. And the erasing of that is deleting important plot twists that happen, deleting important characters. And it really, I think he is the most diluted character. He is just the shadow of a husband, the shadow of a man. He's just this obstacle in the way of the protagonist to be together, which I understand. That's what he's for. But in the novel, he had a rich character that made you feel bad for him a little bit, even when he did things that were considered bad, things that were unethical, because you would think, well, what would I do if my spouse is cheating on me and I know it and I have a chance to not tell them, to keep my marriage? When Jennifer gets into the accident and she doesn't remember anything, he takes it as this, okay, this is my chance to not tell her and gaslight her and act like nothing happened. And that's super interesting because it makes you think, what would I do? Or is it really his fault that he's a sexist prick? I mean, of course it is his fault, but it's also the fault of the society that he grows up with, because Jennifer also thought that her only role is to be the trophy wife, to look pretty at the dinner party and to not embarrass him. They both think that that's what marriage is like. So we cannot vilify him and make the affair look normal when it is still immoral. The novel explores this and provokes you. It makes you think, well, what's the line? What's the line between what is right, what is wrong, what would I do? And maybe I know that having an affair is wrong, but staying in an unhappy marriage is also wrong. It's just that they didn't get to see that because their society wouldn't respect divorce. And even when Jennifer wanted to get a divorce, she already had a daughter and she couldn't leave her behind. All of this complicates everything. It is really tied to Lawrence, the world that he embodies, the traditions that he embodies, and especially his work connects with the exploitation of mine workers in Africa and everything that Anthony stands up for. With this erasure of Lawrence's job comes the erasure of two minor characters that really had their time to shine and were super important towards the end of the novel, which is Mrs. Cordoza and Lawrence Secretary, that I feel so bad that I don't remember her name right now. But yes, let's start with Mrs. Cordoza. She appears in the movie, but the way that she appears in the movie is that there is a maid and she is named Mrs. Cordoza. She barely has any lines of dialogue. I don't even think that she has any significant lines of dialogue other than addressing them, and that's it. But in the novel, Mrs. Cordoza helps Jennifer leave Lawrence twice, and she opens up to her because Jennifer is really scared. This is the first person that is going to judge her for leaving her husband. her seamlessly perfect husband. And Mrs. Cordoza tells her that she also had an abusive husband, that she wanted to leave if she could have. And this conversation between them, this female empowerment to you can leave him, is tiny, but it really empowers Jennifer to seek her independence. So it is those female connections, this understanding of, yes, this might be wrong, but it will also be wrong to stay. Next is the secretary. And this is what I mean, that in the novel we had to see so much of Lauren's work life. We got to go to his office. We had whole characters from this secretary's point of view that is completely erased from the movie. She doesn't exist in the movie. And this secretary had the biggest crush on Lawrence. She would do anything for him. She would scold the people at the office. She loved him. And she totally despised Jennifer because she thought that she was living the perfect life with the perfect man that she loved. And she couldn't see why she was unhappy and having an affair. So she keeps the letters away from her. All upon the moment when Lawrence leaves, he had sex with her a couple of times, but then he changed her for a younger secretary, and he made this newer secretary his lover. That is completely infuriated this woman, as she should, and she gave Jennifer the keys to her freedom. This is how important this woman was, and she's not even in the movie, but she gives Jennifer her letters that she kept away from her, and she gives her documents that prove that Lawrence exploits his mine workers, that he conducts a lot of illegal things and bad things. So now Jennifer has the documents in her hand when she goes and tells Lawrence, I don't want to be with you anymore, and if you do anything against me to try to take away my daughter from me or whatever, I'm gonna expose this and you're gonna have nothing. You're not gonna have a reputation. And she knows that there's something that Lawrence cannot part away from, is his reputation. And again, all of this back and forth in the novel is super interesting from the dynamics of this broken marriage, because she totally understands him, because she was just like him. They come from the same world and the same type of people. But after she met Anthony, she really sees how that's not what she wants anymore. Then in current times, we have Ellie. And I think Ellie is the character that changes the most, but also the changes that were made to Ellie's character are the changes that are the best ones. As I said, because of the change of structure, we meet Ellie way sooner, which is great for you to care about her life, but also she is not depicted in the movie the same way that she was in the novel, because there is a huge part of her character that is erased because it was probably very problematic. Ellie is this journalist that has commitment issues, and we kind of get to see that because at the beginning of the movie, she starts with a one-night stand that she doesn't even remember the name of the guy. However, it's kind of seen as quirky and adorable because she kind of brushes him off and she goes to work and it's over, right? And it's not that bad. In 2021, people don't judge other people for having one-night stands and casual sex. It's normal by our standards. So it's not something that would make her less sympathetic to the viewer. And then she goes to work, she has a couple of friends, and she goes down to the archive to meet Rory. The thing is, in the novel, Ellie is not sympathetic. She is doing a half-assed job because she's obsessed with this married man that is not even texting her back. And the reason why she gets obsessed with the letter, because she sees her own situation in the letter as other people having an affair, and she wants her relationship to be as real as theirs. Because their love is so pure, it's so wholesome, it's love. She wants her relationship with this other married man to be like that. And she dreams about it because she really cares for him. This in the book works as a way of portraying two types of affairs. You have Jennifer's affair that is out of love, and it is an affair, so it's bad because she's unfaithful, but it's true love, right? So you kind of like, okay, it's fine. But then you have Ellie's affair, and it's not fine because it's not true love. She is a home record, and the guy doesn't really care about her. So it's this other type of affair only out of lust and not love. This balance that the book is trying to do, it's not in the movie, because in the movie Ellie doesn't have this lover. Ellie is just curious for the story, and it almost makes you think that she's this hopeless romantic that just gets entranced by the love and she wants to find out what happens. And that's not the Ellie we meet in the book. I guess the movie didn't want to send a conflicting message. They just wanted to keep it as a romantic drama and not a movie when you're gonna think, oh, is being unfaithful good or bad or what. They just were like, okay, it's good when it's love and blah blah blah, right? They didn't want to get too complicated with Ellie. And to be honest, when I was reading, I didn't like Ellie. I couldn't care less about her. And maybe it's not something that only I experienced. Maybe this is the common experience of readers, and they were like, okay, if we're gonna do an adaptation, we need to better this character so it's more sympathetical, so it's not that difficult to digest. And that's a choice. I'm not gonna say if it's a good or bad choice, but I think that the change in Ellie's character is for the better of the overall approach to the story. However, her arc really brought interesting debates and points to think about further. Last character I'm going to be talking about is Rory. In the book, we don't get to meet Rory that much. I mean, he is working in the archive. He seems to be super lovely, and in the movie they really him up. They make him someone that follows the rules a lot, and there were a lot of endearing moments of him with Ellie that weren't part of the book, as I remember. So it helped their connection to be also a love story in the making, not just like a side story from the main one, which I think was good. Although the movie also eliminated this part of Rory's backstory, that is that he was cheated on before. And when he hears what Ellie is doing with this married man and how complicated it is, he's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you because I've been cheated on before. And that's not good. That's not something I like. Like, the movie really doesn't want to get in this complicated debate of unfaithfulness and how it affects others, the ones that have been cheating on. The movie really just wants to focus on the love story, on the romance, and romanticize their affair. Something I like about Rory and Ellie is that because it's 2021 and not 2008, that 2008 is not that far away, but because it's current times, they communicate over text, of course, and you see them waiting for the other to reply, to be nervous on what to say or if they should text or not text, which is subtle, but is this take on the modern form of letter, or this take on there are no more love letters anymore. No one writes love letters, but there are texts. That's like the modern thing to do. So in this world with Jennifer is waiting for the last letter of Anthony, there are people everywhere sending texts to each other like, oh, where you at? Something less formal, but also as a way of the text to be a barrier between you and like the passions you have or some sorts. Something else that I didn't like in the change of Rory's character and Anthony's job, as I said, was very important. His editor was very important. The world of the newspaper, the world of Lauren's job, all of that was important, and it is not in the movie. I understand that they have a time limit, but those really made the characters become human and make them interesting for all the connections they had with others. For example, Anthony, they find him really easily. Ellie is just like, oh, I need to track this journalist, and then she gets his phone number. In the book, it's more interesting because we meet Anthony almost at the same time that we meet Ellie, but she doesn't know he is Anthony. He works at the archive because he stopped being a journalist, because after Jennifer, he couldn't write anything anymore. This is how deep his job and his passion for writing was, and how the end of his passion for Jennifer really destroyed the other passions he had in his life. In the movie, he's not working in the archive. We don't meet him before. We don't get this at the end, because it would have been great for us just to see him, the brief interaction between Ellie and Anthony, of him as an old man, then she discovering the letter, then she going into research and looking for him, to notice at the end that he was there the whole time. That would have been more surprising, because towards the end of the movie I was kind of like hoping for another plot twist, because everything was already too easy to see how it was gonna end, and those last 30 minutes of the movie could have been enriched by this last plot twist. So that's it. That's what I think about the characters, the changes that they made, for good or bad. And I overall think that it's a pretty average love story. Like, I've read better love stories and I've watched better love movies. Like, there's not a movie that I would want to rewatch obsessively all the time, like Notting Hill or One Day or Me Before You. Is a movie that I watched, it was fine, and that's it. Like, the movies for One Day and the movie for Me Before You that are also adaptations, I have some problems with it, but the fact that they took so many important details that created the back and the context of what's happening kind of made it feel bland. It made it feel like any other superficial story, instead of being really important and to have those debates about morality and faithfulness and marriage and society, for me at least. The only changes that I liked were those of Ellie and the overall structure that they changed in the movie. That was really good. When I was reading it, because I picked this book to read when I heard that they were gonna make a movie about it, I was like, okay, this needs to happen. And that's exactly what they did. Because when you read it, you don't care about Ellie. When you get to her, it's too late. You don't care what happens to her. You want to know what happens to Jennifer and Anthony. So yes, that's the change that I absolutely liked. I hope you watch the movie still, or read the book if you are into romance, because it has very cute moments. As a side note, I want to talk about a theory I have that is just my theory. I haven't seen anyone talking about it, and it's probably not true, but I'm gonna say it anyways. The actor that plays Lawrence in the movie is Joe Alwyn. If you don't know who Joe Alwyn is, well, he is Taylor Swift's boyfriend and an actor. If you don't know who Taylor Swift is, what's wrong with you? Really, who are you? Taylor Swift is the music industry. She's my goddess. We love her in this channel. Moving on. Taylor has these lyrics when she says, "Now I read all the books beside your bed." And that's very cute, because it's like, oh, a new couple and whatever. But Joe Alwyn, as an actor, probably reads a lot of books and scripts for movies or projects that he wants to be in. Conversations with Friends is an adaptation that he's also going to be participating in, and is a book that Taylor Swift has said that she likes because maybe she read it from the pile of books that he has. And movies take like 2 to 3 years maybe to develop, especially this one that was in the middle of a pandemic. And last year, Taylor Swift released another album called Folklore. And in this album, she has several songs focusing on affairs. For example, Illicit Affairs in August. And in her next album, Evermore, she has this song called Tolerated that really gives me Jennifer and Lawrence vibes. And I know that she said that it's partly inspired from Rebecca, a novel that we also analyze here, and you have a video about that. But What If also has this inspiration from The Last Letter of Your Lover, this book that Joe Alwyn probably read, that Taylor Swift probably read as well. And if you listen to Illicit Affairs while reading this book, if you listen to Tolerated, to Ivy, I think Ivy is a song from Jennifer's point of view, thinking of Anthony, and then Tolerated is from Jennifer's point of view, thinking of her husband Lawrence. And I think illicit affairs is just Taylor Swift's version of what happened, of how she sees it. And yes, this is my theory. Thank you for coming to Crazy Town. Thanks for staying at the end to the crazy theories about the last letter from your lover and Taylor Swift. That is all from me. Thanks for watching. Keep reading, and when you're not following all my social media, link down below. And if I were you, I will be checking Paulina's pages pretty soon because I might be in one of her next videos. I don't know. You didn't hear from me. Bye.